TPE. And our next public hearing was subdivision 2022-04 Twin Masts.
All right, I have a couple questions. Can we still get, should have smacked you on the arm, can we still get information from DelDOT? Because I want to know, what is a local road considered its level for, and then what would it take to have a Route 1 in?
Well, yeah. The answer to your question is yes, because we can leave the record open. We can leave the record open to receive additional information and to allow a public comment period, because the public has a right to see whatever additional information comes in. And the applicant does too, for that matter. Both of them do.
Right.
So
it needs to be a specific question to DelDOT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine's too specific. Okay.
Here's the problem I have with the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not done. They're not. They are attempting to fix the bicycle while they're riding it. You know, they're texting during the public hearing. They're negotiating while we're having this hearing. And I have some concerns about the superior design aspect. You know, that's relatively new for this area.
Well, this part's not, because this is low density.
Well,
it's relatively new because most of the stuff we see is in the coastal area, which didn't used to have it.
Right,
you know,
right.
So, yeah.
So, and I'm, you know, I'm just one person. I jump in, guys.
Well,
I agree,
that whole, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go.
That proffer of right turn and no left turn, I can tell you what me and probably 95% of the people are going to do. They're going to cause an accident because they're tying up the road doing a U-turn
anyway,
and
or go down and make a U
in the first guy's driveway.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
I think there was a lot of good opposition testimony. There was ordinance-based testimony, which is always important. You know, it's not just people just didn't get up and say, I don't like it, I don't want it, you know, blah, blah, blah. They actually had ordinance reasons, which we have to give some consideration to.
no, I agree.
And
I
two
mean, the
guys
people
that
who
have-
have the hunting, I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was going to say. They need at least
100-foot buffer.
1,000-foot.
So
Really?
Yeah.
the point that Christian was making, if that would have been zoned as a certain type of an airport, would that have eliminated the?
Well, that's part of what the problem was, and that's why it got hung up at county council to some extent, because when it got passed here, and Jamie, you can chime in on it, you can see where we were talking about putting it at this level. We put an airplane on a map that says the airport. Well, it's more complicated than that, because there's public airports that are FAA regulated. There's ones that aren't. There's ones where you can fly into. There's ones you can't. And it was like, once you start peeling back the onion, there was a lot more to it than otherwise, you know.
I think
That's where we never got to, because it got more
Right.
complicated than that.
Well,
you know,
at
FAA
least-
regulated, not FAA, DelDOT, not DelDOT.
But was his point that would, the path that those planes would travel would not be able to be developed within a certain distance from the airport? Is that what?
See the way,
I think there's a buffer zone at the end is what they were describing.
well, that's
Yeah,
what they wanted, yeah. Because the way I read the FAA thing, it said that, Mr. King presented, it said that the FAA doesn't regulate this type of airport because it's private. It's up to the airport operator to protect his airport along with the local zoning authority, so.
We've got to keep coming to meetings like tonight in order to
Well,
protect it.
Yeah, or buy land and do whatever,
I think he has to.
Tonight was
he
paid
has
for
to,
Right,
he has to.
yeah.
I really appreciated the gentleman's testimony and the video, the pilot.
First one, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
because, and that's why I asked that question, if we take those lots out. But then when he was pointing to the lots up on the screen, he was showing a whole lot more lots.
Yeah, when it
That
came
was his
back.
understanding,
Yeah.
that were going to be removed than what they have proffered.
You see, this is what bothers me about where this is right now. It's still being negotiated,
Yeah.
and I'm not too sure that.
And the fact that they just had a meeting with the airport people, the residents there, 2 days ago.
That's it, exactly.
I agree with you completely.
And they're trying to, they're trying to do it on the fly, and I appreciate all that, but, I think it's moving too fast. And I know the applicant is not going to want to hear this, but Let me check with Jamie.
Don't we have
on rules. Jamie,
yeah, good.
If they withdraw the application, they can put it back in. They don't have, there's no waiting period, right?
It's, no, and because it's already been through the process already once, we wouldn't put them to the back of the queue.
It wouldn't put them back at the
You
end.
would have another hearing.
But if, well, listen,
I'm just,
I know,
kidding.
I'm the
It's
last
late.
person that wants to do that, but I'm more interested in seeing it get done the right way, even if we have to do it over again, okay? My concern is that there, and we still haven't addressed, in my mind, the issue of superior design, and we still have not addressed the road.
Yeah.
That's a terrible road.
It is. That's what I'm like.
It's just a
you know,
terrible road.
It's a terrible road.
Well, at least they're going to play devil's advocate here. The section in front of the development will be a whole lot nicer with the shoulders. And then who knows what their contribution is to do road improvements around that, yes.
Offsite. And I get that. And that's why I'm saying I'm not rejecting it out of hand, but.
But I'm telling you, everybody is going to go out of that development and make a right-hand turn, and they're going to meander around, like the guy says, they're going to look at the llamas.
You see this thing right here? It'll tell you to do that.
Right.
If you punch ways in or something, it's gonna, and when traffic's heavy, that's what it's doing all over the county, is it's rerouting everybody onto every little dog path there is. So the idea that there's not gonna be traffic, I mean, that's just not,
And it's quadrupling, right? There's currently, what'd they say, about 40 people, 40 homes on Round Pole?
Well, here's the thing, the traffic generation goes from like 290 to 2,400 or something. I mean, it's some crazy number.
Well, yes, I wrote it down. Just a second.
And I don't understand how DelDOT does not see that as,
292,400.
Well,
An impact.
that's another subject for another time about that, okay, that whole situation. But we'll talk about that later. But good grief. So there's.
So if they were to withdraw, then they could redo. And
Yeah.
But if they don't, we've got to give them an answer in 45 days.
Yeah.
Well, and.
Unless you hold the record open because you want additional information, you know.
And I mean, yeah.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Well.
Because let me just say, the clock doesn't start running until the record's closed. So if
Right,
you held
you
it
can
open,
leave the record open, but like you said,
a question and then public comment, then it would be received, we'd announce closure of the record, and then that would start the 45 days.
we've already closed the record, though.
Now we
Close
just close
the public hearing.
Yeah, it's, we close the public hearing, we can leave the record open. But the thing is, as Vince said, you have to be specific about what you're leaving the record open for, right? And can you leave the record open until they all get done negotiating and decide what they can all live with? I mean, I think that's a little broad
Yeah, no, I don't think you should do that.
you know.
No.
But that's not what Kim was, you weren't suggesting.
No, I wasn't.
But the
I was
reality
suggesting
is,
two specific questions. to DelDOT.
if we deny it, then they can't come back for a year, is that right? Or no? Or is
Yeah,
that
I mean,
not?
they could come back with something, I guess, completely different, or they
They
could
come back
appeal
with a
it.
different application, I guess, they just can't bring the same application back, would definitely would be different,
I'd have to look at the code without saying, but, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I just don't, there's way too much hanging fire on this thing for me to feel comfortable saying to approve it,
I agree.
you know?
I'm just seeing another, again, we don't have the specifics, they say, well, you said potato, I said potato,
Right.
and my potato trumps your potato,
Well,
so, I need to know.
And as I said
Well,
earlier.
what are the questions you have? 'Cause
Well, my questions again were, what is considered, what volume is considered reasonable for a local road is one, which 2,400 cars is not it.
Well,
And
that
then-
depends on what DelDOT says.
That's the way.
That's the potato
right,
and the
and
potato
then-
you were just
And
talking
then what
about.
would it take to have a Route 1 entrance? what would, I mean, they've got quite a bit of frontage there. They could do deceleration and acceleration lanes to make it.
It's actually, yeah, it's actually one of the few we've had where you could actually make an entrance make sense because you've got enough frontage to do it, but I can't see them allowing that under any circumstance. But that's up to DelDOT. I mean, you never know.
That's why I think you were going to ask
And
the
it
question.
certainly wasn't up to
That's why
these
we asked
two
those
guys.
questions, yeah.
You know,
All
it's
those
got to
poor
be
guys, I
somebody
felt
else.
bad for 'em.
Yeah,
So,
so, but.
I think that's a great question for DelDOT
And of
because,
all the nights for your traffic expert to not be here?
I know.
I mean, I can't imagine. I felt sorry for the applicant, frankly, because that, I mean, gee whiz.
oh, yeah, that was,
I mean, that was just, I mean, if I would have pulled it from the
Postponed it,
agenda.
yeah.
I would have said, put me on 2 weeks from now or a month from now, you know, but that's wasn't my call. But, so,
I agree with Kim's suggestion to ask that question to DelDOT because did they just take the easy way out and probably the cheaper way out by putting the entrance where they have it? And did they really pursue the option with DelDOT? And I agree with Bob that DelDOT doesn't usually like that out on route.
no, I understand that.
But did they do their due diligence to try to make that happen?
It would be, yeah, it would be good to know that, and you're right, and it's both of them, it's DelDOT and the applicant, both of them, you know. But you just don't know how it went down. But you see, with all this stuff hanging out here, I don't know how we're supposed to do anything with this. You know.
I kind of feel like when you were yelling at the poor girl that you thought she was redesigning, I kind of feel like we're almost in the redesign phase
Well,
here, you know? We're
well,
like,
and I-
oh, we got to put this buffer in, we got to do
I'll
this.
apologize to all of you again, because that was,
Yeah.
I really felt bad after I jumped her about that, because I was thought, oh my gosh, is this girl redesigning the whole site for us? But
Well,
no.
that's kind of what she was suggesting
Yeah.
when she was
But
speaking.
but seeing that now,
Yeah.
when I saw the exhibit and realized what she was trying to do,
Yeah.
and I think she was quoting chapter and verse from our own code. I think that's what the code
She
says.
seemed unfazed by your comments, so she was good.
Yeah, well,
Can we make sure, I think that
most
was the
people
only
learn.
copy.
Yeah, I
Morning
got to
after
get,
a
that's the
while.
only copy, and
So,
put that back. Yeah, her husband's a lawyer, she's good.
Yeah, well.
All right. So, yes, ask the questions to DelDOT?
I think you should leave the record
Yes.
open.
Yeah. Leave
Just so the
record
motion
open.
would be leave the record open for staff to ask the following specific question or questions to DelDOT, then you got to say what they are.
And I'm asking that leave the record open for staff to ask specific questions to DelDOT. For one, what volume is considered passable for a local road, such as Round Pole Bridge Road, without a failure? And the second would be, what would it take to have a Route 1 entrance? Did you want to throw in there, did they even look into that? Or
Well,
Have they pursued that option?
could we pursue that option?
or we should just ask them to pursue that option.
Yes, please pursue the option.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know how you ever close the record on that, you know, because you're asking them to pursue it, and what's that mean? I mean, we could,
what I
that's a
mean?
pocket
Yeah,
veto on
Just-
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So, all right, so
money
what
on
would
it.
they have to do to get a Route 1 entrance,
That's-
I guess?
Yeah, or ask them if a route, so let's start over.
Okay,
So
help us out here with
the
Mr.
first one is leave
Legalese.
the record open for what is the acceptable level of service on Round Pole Bridge Road.
Yes.
And the second question is an entrance onto Route 1 possible? And what would it take to accomplish that?
Thank you.
Is that covered?
That's what I want to know.
And then it would be, upon receipt of that answer from DelDOT, we would announce receipt of that information from DelDOT on an agenda on a Thursday night and hold the record open for 15 business days following that announcement of receipt.
Yeah, give everybody a
Is that your
chance
motion?
That is my motion.
I second it.
Yeah.
Move and seconded to defer action on subdivision 2022-04 Twin Masts, subject to the conditions stated in the motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
That'll give also Mr. Mears a chance to review the record.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think we really need him to listen to this, all 3 hours of it.
Yeah,
And,
I'm sure he's really sorry he missed.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say it again. It was some of the better opposition testimony we've had.
I gotta say, people are getting more
It was-
sophisticated.
Well,
in what
they're
doing.
listening
Yeah.
finally, because we keep saying, you've got to talk to us about the ordinance. Tell us how it doesn't fit the ordinance.
Yeah.
And they're finally hearing us, which is great. That's what we need. People say you guys don't say no. Well, you know what? You got to give us a reason. You give us a reason, you watch me. Okay?
I would say too, just, I was going to mention this, not realizing you're going to keep the record open. There's some folks here too, just to hear this. Probably when we get everything back in, I would say, because that'll start the 45-day clock, put it on the agenda just to discuss it, because there has been a whole lot to unravel on this. Rather than
Yeah.
expectation of
Yeah.
a motion.
I would like that too. I would like to see it on an agenda just for discussion, not for a vote, because I don't want
Whatever
folks to
that
get excited, think we're going to do something. Yeah.
Okay. All right then, moving on.
Yep, one more thing.
Okay, one more
more
thing.
thing.
Go ahead.
We'll keep it short, just like everybody said tonight. So, and Mr. Whitehouse, I don't know, you chime in. So council asked for information about areas of the code that basically development design, like we heard about tonight, ways to improve that. One of them was, look at our open space definition. There's some inconsistencies between the definition and the things that are considered included in open space and the things that are excluded in open space. It's just rework that. Do we want to see stormwater management ponds be counted as open space? That sort of thing. Look at the buffers. Are the buffers sufficient? Jamie had, what we're going to do, I'm going to fast forward. It was stuff like that. So at an upcoming meeting, Jamie's going to give the same presentation. I don't know if Todd's going to be or not, but that we gave to council, just to get everybody thinking about stuff. And then we're going to actually have a joint meeting with P&Z and council workshop just to talk about things and see if there's areas we can improve. One of the other ones was 99.9C. Like when you read that, it's kind of like the condition we talked about today. It says, there shall be consideration of the following items. Well,
We
they
considered
read
it.
them, we consider them.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Thought about it.
Do we need
Not
to-
going to do it. Yeah.
to improve that?
We
Shall we
consider
do?
it,
Standards,
decide
not
it.
consideration.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, Jamie, what are the other things?
Sure, we also talked about other initiatives and ongoing initiatives, and I think some members of the public commented in the afternoon session on Tuesday that it was just interesting to see all that framed in one presentation, that all this is being worked on at various stages, like the MPZ ordinance and other
Right.
things. And it was just good presentations, just package it all together. So it was thinking why, looking at agendas and looking at the next meeting in 2 weeks, it's a little bit lighter than today, so we could take it on to the end of that meeting. So, or maybe at the beginning, maybe just,
And maybe that way Todd's here too. 'Cause
Yeah.
he did some-
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And it was probably like 20 minutes. It wasn't a big time.
Let's do it, yeah, let's do it. Anything else for the good of the order? All right,